other takes, though, the Las Vegas Raiders, which is getting ratioed to absolute hell. And this is a sentiment, again, that I mean, I even heard kind of Al Sharpton give a version of this. We can finally breathe, like, again, like that this was some sort of like pressure release valve, the Axios story saying that, and we already discussed that. If you're just joining us, we talked about why this didn't fix anything and is just a step in the road of any sort of change. But anyway, that's a crazy take. And then Nancy Pelosi, like, quintupling down on it. Thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice. And I could play the clip. I don't know if we really, well, here, let's just play it. Because the context makes it worse.
Thank you, George Floyd, for sacrificing your life for justice, for being there to call out to your mom. How heartbreaking was that? Call out for your mom. I can't breathe. But because of you, and because of thousands, millions of people around the world who came out for justice, your name will always be synonymous with justice.
Such an insane reaction to that. I mean, the man was murdered. He didn't sacrifice his life for anything. He had his life violently taken by the state.
I hate this.
Yeah.
I hate this so much. I hate the fact that to tie it with like what the Raiders posted and stuff like that. It's like the only people allowed to say I had a moment of exhalation because of this is Floyd's family.
Yeah.
Those are the only people in my mind that are allowed to say, no, like, I feel like this has been like resolved to some extent. Like, I feel like this like brought a moment of closure. But when Speaker Pelosi was speaking, all I could think about was Floyd's daughter watching this woman say, oh my goodness, I'm so glad he sacrificed his life for this. His daughter is too young to understand that type of rhetoric. And it's fucked up rhetoric. But like, as someone who lost her father at a young age, I don't give a shit of what that death did. Like, I would be outraged. And, it's like nothing's going to bring her dad back. And even though like his, death created this watershed moment in white society about that, do you think that matters to her? No, it matters to her that her dad's not going to be there to see her graduate high school or college or be the person that she's going to become. Like, how dare Speaker Pelosi like demean what his life was like as a living human? And for her to say that one moment where she's like, to call out for his mom, wasn't that heartbreaking? Like, it was such a moment of like, oh, we all saw that. That was like as though she was like that moment when Captain America caught Thor's hammer. Oh, it was so good.
Yeah. It's disgusting.
What, like, how broken is something that it takes watching a man be murdered to even acknowledge that it's broken by the majority of Americans, right? Prior to that, we watch other people be murdered on camera and they were just like, what do you do? What can you do? Right? So that the fact that someone had to be murdered in front of billions of people, had to watch it to even begin conversations about fixing an entity that is supposed to be of service to all of us is absurd on its face, right? And the I can breathe or we can breathe is very telling of who's posting that, because the I can breathe, it's saying that you now have some closure, you can move the fuck on, right? Again, I begin by saying, do I feel any more safe as a Black man under the more risk of state-sanctioned violence? I do not, right? So I can't breathe, and I don't want to. This does nothing in deterrence of me trying to pursue a more fair, just, and equitable society. But it's very telling. We done with this. We can breathe now. And with the haste with which people want to wash their hands of this, and it is indicative of the broader society. This is a difficult problem to fix, right? And it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of sacrifice. And if you're a politician or you're a business organization or you're a person who just doesn't really affect, then it's in your interest to say, oh, problem solved. Justice works. Let's move on.
Yeah. No, I mean, and so, you know, it like also catches us in this tension of like, you know, obviously there's this group on the far right that just thinks the police should be able to wantonly murder people until it's them, then they'll suddenly hate it. But for now, as long as it's not them, they're okay with like, you know, rampant state violence. But then you got like the Pelosi's and this group in the middle who like in the weirdest fucking way imaginable can acknowledge there's a problem, but you're really skeptical they're going to do even like the bare minimum to do anything about it. And then there's this group, you know, which I consider ourselves a part of, is like that wants to like this just galvanizes us to like dig in more and figure out how we can dismantle, defund, abolish, whatever you want to call it, these like incredibly oppressive systems that don't work.
Well, it's like I think the people like Pelosi and all of these people who are like, "Oh, this is a moment to close this book." It's because they think the problem is Chauvin. Like that's what they think the problem is. And I think that Speaker Pelosi is a brilliant woman. And so I don't think that she's like ignorant that this is a systemic problem that reaches back to the history of policing with slave catching. Like, I don't think she just doesn't understand that. She just doesn't want to see it and she doesn't want to face it. But that's the root of in my opinion, that's the root of these people who are saying, oh, this is now a closed book, is that they think the problem is the one bad apple, you know, like Ron was saying, but it's not a Chauvin based issue. This is a larger issue that they just don't recognize, they don't want to recognize, and they're ignorant.